Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for watching, much appreciated. So today we got a lot of work, but it should give you a really good idea of how to do it and the basics. So today we're going to be building a good old-fashioned CRUD operations full stack application. For those of you that don't know, CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. Basically a input-output application where somebody can put in information, it stores to a database, and then it reads out to a front-end application. So we're going to be using the Mern stack, Mongo, Express, React, and NodeJS. As you can see, here's the website for NodeJS. It's where you go, you download it, and then it's a simple installer. So I'm going to be doing the entire app in one video, so there's a lot to cover, but as you'll see as we go on, there's a lot of little things that are easy to do, but if you miss them it can really give you a headache. So that's what we're going to be doing today, CRUD application using the Mern stack, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. Like I said, I'm going to be doing the entire app in one whole video. There's no part two, so I'm going to be cramming a lot of information in, but that's why it's on YouTube, and you can rewind and watch it over and over again. And if you find this video helpful, then please leave a like. If you find my channel helpful, please consider subscribing. I do basic coding tutorials for beginners. And alright, with all that out of the way, let's get started. So Mern stack CRUD application, here we go. Okay guys, like I said, so you need Node.js installed on your computer, so just download the latest stable version and run the installer. The other thing you're going to need, at least for the back end, this is the back end portion, we're going to do all that first, and then we're going to create the front end and the ways that we interact with that, with the back end. And a lot of people ask, in fact the reason for this video is I got an email from a friend who watches my channel and was saying, can you do a video on how you connect the back end to the front end? And the truth is, realistically the way it works is you just create the back end and then you tell your front end in React or whatever you're using through an HTTP protocol like Axios to say hit this URL. But there's some details in there that we're going to go over. But basically you can create one back end and have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 apps hitting it. It doesn't matter. You're creating the back end. You're creating a server that goes and gets information from a database and presents it to the front end. So it doesn't really matter. You could be using PHP, JavaScript, Python, whatever. They all kind of work similarly, especially in this CRUD application setup. So the other thing we're going to need, or you're going to need, is a MongoDB database. This is mine. You sign up for a free account with either Google or your email or whatever, and then you create a cluster. I'm not going to go through all the details. If you guys want me to do a video on how to, the finer points of MongoDB Atlas, because it's one of the most popular ones out there, basically it takes you through a form and you fill out your information for your cluster, and that's it. It's just this, and then your collections are here, which we have some. I was testing this before, and actually I could delete this. So we're just creating the cluster, which is like the database itself. It's what MongoDB calls it. So we're just creating that. Our actual records or our actual documents are going to be created through our app, right? This is just the database to store it. So we need to have this, and this is how we're going to connect to our app, which we'll get to later. The only other thing I would suggest if you have trouble is you want to make sure your IP address is allowed to access this, otherwise you'll have some trouble. And then you need to add a user, which I forget what the password is here, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to create a new user. I'm going to say Adam, and password will be Adam 123. I'll delete this afterwards so you guys can't spam me. Yes, and then add user. Now keep in mind, this is the user to access your cluster. This is not your user login for MongoDB, which is up here. That's different. Okay. Alright, so that's really all you need. The only other thing you need, which I suggest is, and we're going to be using here, is Postman, which you get from here. You download it, you run the installer, and it's a way to test back-end APIs without having a front end. So we're going to test it first before we go ahead and build our entire front end and discover that it doesn't work. This is the package we're going to be using. This is part of the Mern stack, MERN Express. It's a back-end framework that allows you to build easier routes for your API, and we'll get into what that is. Listen, let's get started. Alright, so here I'm on Microsoft, I'm on Windows. I have just a command prompt. We're gonna mkdir, and we're making a help desk today, like a place where people can submit tickets. It's just a basic CRUD application, but it's just, you know, this video is just meant to help you to get started so that you can add a bunch of things, notifications, you know, all kinds of stuff, emails that get sent, etc. But this is just a basic, you know, in-out type of input-output type of operation, CRUD operation. Alright, so now we're in that folder. We created the folder help desk, and now we're in that folder. We're going to do our npm init, and I should have done the Y flag. So it's just going to ask us some questions. Version, that's fine. Description, entry point, I'm going to put server.js because that's what I prefer. Git repository we don't need. Author, you can put your name. License is fine, and then yes. Okay, good. Now we have that all. Okay, that doesn't work. So we have that all set. So now what we're going to do, since we have VS Code, which by the way I'm using VS Code, which I suggest you do also, you can type code period and it will open VS Code for you in that folder, so you don't have to fool around. And we have one file in here in our help desk folder, and that is our package.json, and that's all the information we just entered. I'm going to delete this because we do need scripts, but not that one in particular. Let me save that. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to close up this file window. I'm going to open a terminal, which is up here, which is a VS Code deal, which is a very nice feature. I'm going to right click terminal and move to the right panel because that's what I like. If you don't like that, then don't do that. What we're going to do is excuse me, we're going to let's see, yeah, we're going to install packages. We need dependencies like Express, along with a few other things, to make this a little bit easier, a little more streamlined. So we do that npm I, which you get npm node package manager with your node. When you install node on your system, you get npm. So I'm going to do npm I. We're going to need Express, of course. We're going to need Mongoose to deal with our connection to our MongoDB database. We're going to need something called config, which will help get sensitive information without exposing it. And we're going to need something called method. I think that's right. Method, am I spelling that right? Method override, which just allows us to submit to an API without a form. And that's mainly for our delete button, to delete records. So we're going to let those install, and then we have two more to install after that. Now, as you can see, we got our dependencies over here. Those are the things we installed in alphabetical order: config, express, method override, and mongoose. Now we have two more to install: npm I. I'm going to put dash uppercase D for a dev dependency because we only need these in our dev environment. We don't need them in production. We're not going to put this into production, but if you were, you wouldn't need these. The first one is concurrently, which runs both our front end and our back end at the same time. Normally you'd have to open 2 different terminal windows. This just makes it a lot easier. And the second one is NodeMon, which just watches our server for any changes. Otherwise you'd have to stop the server, save it, and then start it up again. This just does it automatically when you save. Okay, we're doing that there. Just letting this install. Any questions you guys have remaining, please leave them in the comments, as I am pretty quick to answer. Okay, here we go. We have that, and now we're ready to begin our project. So here we're going to right click here and add a new file in the main folder called server.js. Of course, you probably could have guessed. Now, what do we need to do? That is a great question. All right, let me gather my thoughts here. So, first we need to bring in Express. Express equals require. This is ES5, I believe. As far as I know right now, Node does not support the ES6 import thing, so we got to do it like this. But to be honest, what's the difference? You know, you're still typing in code. I mean, I guess there are some benefits of import, but you know, this is fine. PHP works like this as well, by the way. All right, so we brought in Express. By the way, sorry about the audio, guys. I got a new computer, and I'm still working on getting a good audio system to record my voice. So hopefully I get that soon. Anywho's, so let's do that. So we brought in Express. Now we need to create something. We're going to create another const called app equals express, the express method, which is actually a function. Okay, that's all we need. All right, one more thing. Const port. We're going to create a port. It's going to be equal to process.env.port. Now, this is for when you deploy your app. If you were to deploy this, we're not going to, but if you were to, you can't preset the port for like Heroku or Google, you know, if you're going to deploy the app, because Google or Heroku, they're going to choose their own port to serve it up on. So this is how we do it. So whatever the process is, port is set in Google or Heroku, you're going to do that. But for development, we set our own port number. So we're going to say or, so either it's in production or it's this 5000. Okay, so that port just takes care of that for us. Now our server is one more line away from being complete, so we're going to do app.listen. We have to listen on that port that we just made, which is port, our port variable, and then we'll do a callback function. I'm using arrow functions, which is fun. Console.log, and instead of quotes, I'm going to use backticks, those little notches to the left of your 1 key. I'm going to say server running on port, and then to add a variable, you just do $, curly braces, and then your variable. So it should say, you know, server is running. All right, let's try it. Let's save this, save all, and we're going to come down here. I'm going to clear this out so you can see. I'll make it a little bigger for you. And we're going to do node, I think it's node server. It's not sever. Server. Yes. Sorry about that, guys. Like I said, it's a new computer. So there we go. Server running on port 5000. We now have an official, actual server, right? I'll show you something else. App dot. Let's do app.get. We'll go here. We'll say API/test. This is just a test. You don't have to type this. just to show you. Request response. This is a small preview of what we're going to be doing later. Res.send. We're going to take our res element and we're just going to send hello world. I know, predictable. Save all. Okay. Now we have to come over here, type Control-C to stop our server, and do node server again. Now this is where NodeMon comes in, because you'll see in a little bit, if we use NodeMon, we wouldn't have to stop it and then restart it. So I'm going to come over to my browser, localhost port 5000. Now here you'll see cannot get, because that's not a route. So we do /API/test, and there's our hello world. So we're pretty much in business. I'm going to close this because we don't need that. This is our React that we're going to be using. I showed you all these, so let me close these. I'll put all these in the description below, hopefully, if I remember. If I don't, you can yell at me in the comments. Alright, so let's stop the server. Let's delete this because we're not going to be using that. And let's see, what should we do? Let's add something that's important. Now I'm going to copy and paste this. No, I'm not. We're just going to type it out. So remember I said we have in here, we have our scripts. So we need, so we're going to be using concurrently. So client dash install, whoops. This is all JSON because this is .json. So we're going to do npm install dash prefix client. This is for the front end. We're not really going to be using this, but it's a good idea to have it in there. It's mainly for when you deploy. Okay, so the next one is going to be our basic start script, and that is going to be, whoops, that is going to be node server. You can put .js, it doesn't matter. And that was what we typed in over here, as you've seen. Okay. Next, we're going to do, what should we call this? We'll call this server. Doesn't really matter what you call these, but something that makes sense. We're going to do NodeMon server, which we'll be using when we're developing the back end, because we're going to use NodeMon to watch it. Now we need, this is for the front end, but we might as well add it now. Just follow along. So this is the client. If you want to run just the, oops, just the client front end, you can do npm start, which is the React start script. Whoops. Sorry, prefix. Geez. Prefix client. Because the folder we're going to be storing our front end stuff in is going to be called client. And then the final one is the big one, dev. This starts everything for us. Okay, so we need concurrently. Concurrently. Okay, now this looks a little weird, but you got to trust me. So backslash like that, quotes, double quotes. Sometimes this acts a little funky, but you need two quotes in there. Trust me, the arrows will go away in a little bit. So we need npm run server, oops, server, which is this one we just created up here. Okay. Then we need a backslash again, which exits out of that. Okay. Then a space, then backslash, then two quotes, and then another backslash. Okay, and then in here we need npm run the client script. So basically this is just going to run it again. And I'm sorry, this slash should be inside of the quotes. So you're basically escaping it. So this is our dev. So when we come over here to run our front end, we'll go npm run dev, the dev script. If we wanted just the back end like we will in a little bit, we'd run npm npm run server, and that'll run just our back end. Okay, but we're not ready for that yet. So that's all we need. So I'm going to save that, close that, because we're done with that. Now, here's our server file. Okay, now let's see, what should we do first? First thing we need to do, let's bring in all our packages. Const mongoose equals require mongoose. Let's see, const config, oops, equals require config. We're just bringing everything in, storing it in a variable so that we can easily use it later. Const method override, 2 R's, good, equals require method override. See, VS Code kind of fills in the gaps there. Okay, great. Good, so we got everything brought in. The next thing we should probably do, just to save time, is we're going to be working with JSON data, so it doesn't automatically work, okay, with JSON, right? Express is basically tailor-made for JSON, but it doesn't automatically work. So Express has a body parser. We have to parse the JSON. So express.use express.json, and this just tells it that JSON is okay to use. We're also going to do app.use express.url encoded method, and we're going to pass in extended set to true. This is just for URLs, to work with the URL. Like I said, I'm not going to explain every single thing. The next thing we need to do real quick is to add cores. Whoops, cross something, I forget, but it's for sending data from a server to a front end and vice versa. Otherwise you're going to get an error. App.use, you can look it up, cores, it's pretty common. Request, response, and next, because we're going to check to see if cores is okay, and then we're going to move on. Okay, this is just a standard function. Res.header. Normally I'd copy and paste this, but I can't right now. So we need, oops, access, yes, dash control. This is, you can probably Google this. I'll just type it out. Allow dash origin. So basically it just tells the front end that, you know, front ends are allowed to talk to this, and this is where you set the front end. http://localhost. Now you won't have to change this when you deploy, because your front end will still be working from localhost. So we're setting the header, and then we do another res.header. Separate this, and we need access dash control dash allow dash headers to allow the headers, and then we need origin comma x requested dash width. I suppose you could also install core. There's an npm package for cores. I could have done that, but we're almost done. Content dash type. Oops, that should be type accept. Okay, so that's it. And then you just want to call next, which means it moves on to the next function. And also, while we're at it, so this you can either, whoops, you can either type this out or install cores and just do app.use cores, which I probably should have done, but whatever. Next, method, oops, method override. We're deleting without form. We're going to override the method. App.use method override, right? And then quotes capital X dash HTTP, which is the method dash override. Okay, so that's for that. Okay, so that's all done. All right, so this is not part of our app. This is just so these two things are just so our front end will work with our back end, which is probably important. All right, listen, let's connect to our database. Connect to database. We're going to use Mongoose. Okay. Oops, sorry. We need mongoose.connect. Now, here's where we start getting into some stuff. We need to connect to our database, so we can come in here and do HTTP, Mongo, whatever. But a better way would be to come over here. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this config, same as the package. And inside of this, we're going to create a, oops, sorry, it should be a folder. Sorry about that, guys. New folder called config. Okay, why is it showing up as a file? Save all. New folder. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure what the heck is going on. It should be a new folder. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I'm not sure what was happening there. And then inside this new folder, we need a new file called default.json. Okay. Oops. And then inside of there is where we're going to put our connection string. Okay. So we're going to open up some curly braces because this is JSON, and we'll call this Mongo URI. Pretty standard. Okay, and then we need quotes. Now we need to go back to, I shouldn't have closed that, Mongo DB. Whoops, not Mongoose, sorry. Mongo Atlas, but that's what a Mongoose looks like if you ever wondered. Sign in, I'm already signed in. So we need this connection string, connect to your application, copy it, go back to our application, and paste that in here. Okay? And right here, this is where you put in your password, that user that we created, not your MongoDB Atlas user login, but the user that you created. So hopefully that works. Alright, that's all we need to do for that. Good. Close that up, we're done. Now, in here, okay, we need to create a variable. Okay, we'll just call it DB for database, which is what it is. Const DB is going to equal that config, not the folder, but this. That's what this config does for us. .get. Okay, and then we want our Mongo URI, that JSON thing. And this is just a more secure way to do it rather than having it in plain text. So we come down here, whoops, and in here we do DB. Now we got to add a few things to this. Okay, and once again I got to type it out. So we're going to open up an object, and we got to do use new URL parser, set that to true, comma, use find and modify, set that to false, which is just Mongoose stuff. Use create index, set that to true. As you can see, VS Code is very helpful. And use unified topology, whatever that means, sets to true. This is just Mongoose stuff so that it doesn't error out, otherwise you're going to get a warning. Okay, so we're connected to our database. Now we need a promise. because it is promise-based, we're going to set a callback function, an arrow function in this case, and we're just going to console.log, console.log, connected to database. Okay, and then just in case there's any errors, we're going to do a .catch with an error message if possible. Then we're going to console.log that error. Okay, so let's save that. I think we're done for now. Well, not done, but our server is all set up and connected to our database. So remember that package.json npm run server. Let's try it out. There we go. NodeMon is watching. There's an authentication fail, which probably means I don't have my password correct on the config. Alright guys, so as you can see down here, oops, we're connected to database. Actually, let me clear this out. Never mind, it doesn't work. C, stop everything. That's alright. Sorry, Control C. Clear, just so you can see a little better, and we're going to do again npm run server, and it should connect, and you see we're connected to our database. And if I change this, NodeMon watches for us and changes it and updates it. Okay, good. Let's close that. All right, server. So we're done with that. So I'm going to close this for now. We'll need it one more time, but not a big deal. Next, let's talk about our model. Okay, so Mongoose operates, it's a JSON NoSQL database. Well, actually, MongoDB is the NoSQL database, and Mongoose is how we interact with it easier. Whoops. So I'm going to create a folder called model. Model. And then inside that, we're going to be creating tickets for a help desk. So I'm going to call that tickets.js, and this is where we create our Mongoose file. Mongoose model that tells the database how to structure our document, which is a NoSQL. So const mongoose. This shouldn't take too long. Equals require. We need mongoose. Good. And now we need to create a schema, const schema. This is just using an instance of the class mongoose dot schema. Okay. Now we need to create. Now here's where we create our actual schema. Const. We'll call it ticket schema. Oops. Schema. Is that spelled right? No. Schema. No, that's still not right. Schema. There we go. Equals a new skis. Oh my god. Sorry guys. Schema. It's still early here. Equals a new schema. Opens up to an object. Okay. And then this could be whatever we want. So let's do a subject. It's set to an object with a type of string, because it's just going to be a string, and we'll say required is true. Now this is not form validation, this is just requiring that on the back end, if the body of the information that is sent doesn't include something called a subject with a string value, then it's going to error out. So this has nothing to do with form validation. Description, Jesus, can't type. Description, also set to an object with a type of string. We'll say that's required also. Okay, and we got one more. We'll just do created at, which makes sense because you want to know when it was created at, and then you can do calculations of how long it's been since the ticket was submitted, and stuff like that. Create a a expected completion time, etc. Whatever. Just let your imagination run wild. So we're going to set that to as a default to date.now because they're not going to, you know, there's no sense in setting it manually, so we just set it automatically. Now, that's all we're going to do. Anything else is just repetitive. You can add as much stuff in here as you like. You know, this could be a number. This could be any form of old school data types, which has another name, but I forget what it is right now. Anyway, so you know you can have as many as you want in here. They can be arrays, they can be numbers, they can be other objects, etc. Nested objects. Module.exports is going to be equal to tickets. This is what the variable is called. Also is equal to mongoose.model, which is this is our model. Tickets. And then this is our ticket schema that we're going to export. Okay. All right. We're done with this. That's all done. Okay. Good. No errors. Close that. Close that. We're done with that. Now it's time to create our routes. So let's do this. Let's bang it out. I'm going to create a folder called routes. I'm going to go into that folder and create another folder called API because you might have different routes besides your API. I'm going to go into API. I'm going to create a file called tickets, obviously, because that's what we're creating. Here's our real deal. Here's where it all comes together. Okay. We need express again equals require express. We need something called router, express router, which comes with express, which is very convenient. We're going to set express.router method. Okay. And we also need our tickets model because this is how we're going to reference it in our routes. Equals requires how we're going to search and store and all the good stuff. So we got to go out of this folder, out of the routes folder, into model, and then we need the tickets model. Cool. And let's not forget to export this. Export, right? Module.exports. Sorry. Module.exports router. Should be equals router. Okay? So let's get started. Now, I like to add just a comment. So this is get all tickets. Okay. We'll say for now this is access is public. You can add user authentication, which would also go in your API folder. You would then have a file called users.js where you would go to your the same database for your users table, and so on and so forth. So instead of app, we use now router.get to make our get request. All right. So we're doing a lot of typing and not a lot of showing. Okay. So for right now, this is going to go. What the heck? For right now, this is going to go to the base route or the home route, and we're going to add in our request response. And there. Now, what do we type in here? Well, we're going to make this async, an async route, because we're going to wait for responses and then send them once we get them. So let's do const tickets in lowercase. We're going to await the process of our tickets model to show us. I'm going to say .find, which is a high order array method. Which will, you know, if we're not specific, if there's no parameters, it's gonna give us them all. So we're gonna do a little catch here. So if tickets, if not tickets, if there's no tickets returned, we'll just throw an error. Throw error. No tickets found. If there is tickets, I guess you would want to sort them by date or by created at. So we're going to do const sorted equals tickets, our tickets variable we just created. Tickets.slice, we're going to slice the array into individual ones, and then we're going to do a dot sort. Okay, and then we do A and B, which is our variables. Okay, and then we're going to do B dot created at minus A dot created at, and that just, you know, separates them by their, when they're created at. Okay. Let me close this up just a little bit so you can see. Now we're good. Now res.status 200, because it's good, because we have tickets, and we'll handle if there's an error next. .json, and we're just going to send in that sorted array. Okay. Now let's come down here and do our catch. Space catch error, and we'll say res.status is 404, because it means it's not found. .json, and we'll do e dot, or oops, that should be error dot message. Okay, so it just prints it out. Oh, sorry, sorry. We need our key value pairs, MSG there, and then error. So it'll give us the error message. All right, let's try that real quick. Let's see if that works. So we got no errors. Let's go to Postman, and this is how you do Postman. So you just open up a new, once you install and all that, you get this, and you create a new thing, and you're going to do local host port 5000. Oh, you know what? We forgot to do something. Sorry, guys. All right, so this is our route. We need to import it into our server.js file. So we're going to say app.use. Now this is where we specify our route, right? So in our router folder, this is just the home route. This is where we specify our route. /API will say tickets, of course. And then we're going to require, might as well just do it in here. We're going to require where is it? Routes /API /tickets. Save it. So this is how we're using. If you had a user's route, it would be the same thing. App.use API /users require routes API users. But we're not doing that. So let's come up here and do /API /tickets. Let's test our routes. See what we get. Undefined is not a function. Shut up. Localhost tickets, good. Okay, so we got a little bit of an error. Let's see what's going on here. Wait, tickets. Okay, guys. So I just had to go back here, and this said model names. It should just be mongoose.model. And that's what was giving us an error. So as you can see, did our GET request, and we get a 200 response, which means everything's a-okay. And obviously we have no things in there. We have no tickets in there, so it just gives us an empty array, which is exactly what we want. Now let's see if we can add that. All right, so let's create our next route, which will be, now you could get an individual ticket thing, which is fine. I'm trying to think, should we do that? No, let's not do that. Let's just do the basic CRUD operation, because that's what we're here for. Okay, but basically you would go by, you know, and the delete request you'll see is pretty similar. So let's do a router.post, okay, to our base route again, which will be API /tickets. Let's do this async also. Request response. Okay, good. So now in the body that's going to be sent to our route, our API, we're going to get stuff from the body. So let's pull that out. This is called destructuring. So we're going to create a const, which is an object. We're going to say the subject. This is subject, comma, description. I should have named it something easier. And that's it. That's all we need, because the created at is automatically generated. Equals request.body. And this is just so we don't have to type subject.request.body, description.request.body every time. Now that we have our information, this will be sent in the body of our request from our front end to our back end. We're pulling that information out, these two things. And now we're going to create a new ticket. A new ticket is going to be equal to new tickets. Whoops, sorry. New tickets, which is our model up here. So it's going to be a new one of them, which is going to be an object, and it's going to contain our subject and description, which is right here, which we pull out from the body. Okay, so our new ticket is there. We have that. Now, try catch again, because we're doing asynchronous. Let me zoom down. I can't zoom in yet. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to mess anything up. So let's put our catch down here. All of our catch blocks are pretty much going to be the same, so I'll probably end up just copying and pasting it. Anyway, in fact, I'll do that now. All of our try catch blocks are going to be the same thing. We're just going to print out, we're going to give a 404 status, which is a not found, and then print out our error message. As far as what we want to do if there is no error, okay, we're going to say const ticket again equals await this process. We're going to take our new ticket and we're going to do a dot save, which saves it to the database. Pretty self-explanatory. If not ticket, we're going to throw an error, because if it was not saved, error, oops, error, ticket was not saved. Pretty simple. If it was saved, if everything's good, we're going to do a res.status of 200. And then we'll do .json, and we'll just return, this won't go to the front end, it'll just return to our back end so we can inspect it. Okay, what should we do? Should we move on and do the rest of the route? There's only one more route, which is our delete, create, read, update. There's also an update, and I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So basically it would be a router.put route to the same route, except we need a placeholder, okay, which for the ID, which is going to be sent with the body. Request response. Okay, yeah, good. Now again, we need to pull out what's going to be sent, which will be our subject. I don't know why you would change this, but just to give you an idea, description is equal to request.body, because you're sending a form again to update stuff. Okay, so we got that. Now we need to do tickets dot find. It's dot find by ID, which is coming from our request.params.id, which is this up here. It's the parameters that we're sending. Then we're going to follow that up with a callback with an error and our ticket. Okay. Here's our callback. Okay, so we're going to check if there is an error. Then we want to say res.status 400.json, and we'll say msg error.message. That should be good. And we'll also say success is false, just to check on our back end. If there was no error, Okay, we need to get ticket we need to get our ticket dot subject. It's going to be equal to subject, which is right here. So this is what we're getting by this tickets.find. We find the ticket by the ID and then we pass it in here. That's what it is, sorry. So this parameter is our ticket. So if there's an error, we check. If not, this is our ticket that this find by ID found. We then take that subject and we say is going to equal our new subject being sent in through the body. Okay. Then another set of parentheses, ticket dot description is going to be equal to description sent in from the body. Okay, you got to do this for each one. Okay, so each one of your things in your model, ticket dot save, that we do. So we save over top of it, and we'll do res dot JSON the ticket. Okay, so that's a put. Pretty simple, but a little, if you were to just see it flat out, it might be a little confusing. Now let's do our last route of the evening, router.delete. Delete. Okay, to our home route with a placeholder ID because we need to get the ID of the thing we're deleting. Request response here. Now we need a try catch block, and I'm sorry, this is going to be asynchronous also. Async. The put request is not asynchronous. Doesn't have to be in this case, or at least it could be, but I just didn't. Whatever, it doesn't matter because you're not doing a promise. Okay, so let me just zoom up so you guys can see. So we need try catch. So const ticket again, because we got to find our ticket first. Got to make sure it's the right one. Equals await. So we want to await this process. We want the ticket to be found first. Dot find by ID, and again request dot params dot ID. And this is also how you would work finding individual tickets. You would find them by ID and then just print them out. So first you find it by ID, and then you send it in a res.json. Okay, so if not tickets, meaning if there was no ticket by that ID found, throw error, no ticket found. Okay. If there was, const deleted equals await ticket dot remove, and this is just a JavaScript method that we call. Okay, let's do one more check. If not deleted, then we're going to throw an error, and we'll just say ticket was not deleted. If it was deleted, we're going to say res.status of 200 because it was a success. .json will give a response just so we can tell. Success true. We'll say it was a success true. And catch error. We'll say res.status. You probably know this by now. It's .status 404. .json. And we'll say MSG or message is error message that we passed in up here, and this should be err.message. So we're going to print out the error message if there is one, and we'll set success to false just so we can tell. Alright, that's it. Let's see if we can do something. Let's see if we get any errors. No. Let's try our get route Still getting an empty array, of course. Let's add one. So we're going to do a post route to the same URL. In the body, you want to select raw and select JSON, because that's what we're going to do. Opening and closing curly braces, quotes, subject. Remember those things we set, the parameters. We'll say ticket test 1. This could be anything, and we'll say description. Oops, sorry, that shouldn't be capital. Should be exactly the way you type it in your model. Everything that you create in your model should be the same as the rest of everything. Your model dictates how these are created. Let's just type in a bunch of junk, doesn't matter, and let's send it. So if everything's good, yep, 200 status, our subject. MongoDB gives it an ID, and here's our created at by default with today's date. Let's try to update. Let's see if that works. So we need this ID / the ID, and let's change this to 0.1. See if that works. Uh-oh, we got an error here. Huh. Let's do a GET request. So here's our ticket. Maybe I just copied it wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. So / there, and this needs to be a put request. And let's send this again. And there we go. See, and it changed it. And you can change this to something, a little world. And there you go, it changed it. Let's do a delete request. Actually, let's create a new one just so we have some context. Delete that. Let's change this to post, and let's create another one. Call this test ticket 2. Hello world, bunch of exclamation points, and post it. There you go. Let's get a GET request to get them all, and there's our 2 tickets. Now let's delete this test number 2 that we created. So we're going to copy that ID, and we're going to put that there, and we're going to select delete to delete it. Success false. Tickets was not defined. Tickets delete. Oh, sorry. Ticket. Let me just go through here. Ticket.remove. Maybe that's it. It might be it, just a typo. Let's see. Success true. It was deleted, and then if we go back and do a GET request, we should only have the 1, and indeed we do. Guys, that's it. That's the back end. End of story. I'm going to close Postman. We've tested them all. We're going to close this. I am going to pause the video real quick and do an npm install, and then I'll talk to you guys about the process. Shouldn't be a big deal, but sometimes it takes a little while, and I don't want you guys sitting around, while I'm waiting for things to install, okay? So now here we are. What I did to begin the front end, I did this here, npx create react app, which you get npx with npm, don't get them confused, create dash react dash app, and then I typed in client to put it in a folder called client, and I ran it, and when you see this here, this happy hacking and all that bullshit, then you're all good. Okay, so we're good with that. I'm going to clear this out. Over here, you can see these are all the folders we created. Okay, now we have our client folder, and this is what npx did. It put all this stuff in here, your Babel configuration for JSX, all your goody stuff that you need. That's a total pain to set up freehand. So what I'm going to do now is just go through here, select this index CSS, select this test, and I'm going to delete this because we don't need this. You could leave it in there, but we don't need this. I'm going to come in this index.js file, which is your initial JS file to link to your index.html. I'm going to come in this is our main app file where you put all your components once they're created, and you'll see what I'm talking about. App.css, I'm going to select all and delete. We don't really need that here. We can leave this. I'll get rid of this logo, this robot.txt file I don't really need. You don't have to get rid of those, but you can. I come in this manifest and get rid of these. I have a whole video that shows you how to get set up with Create React App. I'll link that also in the description, as well as all the sources for this video. Alright, we can close that, we can close this. We need to delete this import of logo file. Save that. Okay, one thing I am going to do, I'm going to go to Bootstrap, and I'm just going to use Bootstrap just to give it a little flavor, just so it's not so lame, because otherwise it'll look bad. And normally you would import, you would install Bootstrap and React Bootstrap, but in this case I'm just going to use it. I'm just going to put it in here. I'm going to put the CDN in here, and then we can use Bootstrap classes. I'm going to change this, help desk. This is a web app, by the way. Mobile app is different, although strangely similar. You can delete all this comments. You don't need any of that. Okay, close that. Close that here. Now, one thing we need to do, here's a very important thing, especially when in development environment, that we have to add. Now, don't get confused. We're inside the client folder. This is the package.json inside your client folder, not the main backend folder. It should look like something like this. We got to come down here, and we have to add a proxy. We don't have to, but we're going to. In most cases, that's what you want to do. Okay. So basically, all that does is, if you're familiar with proxies, it just tells you what the base URL is. Okay, so it's a JSON thing, so we have to do HTTP /localhost 5000, which is of course our with a /. Don't forget this /, otherwise you're screwed. Well, you're not screwed, but just do it like this. So this tells our front end where to go for all our back end stuff. Okay, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get into it. So let's close this public folder. We don't need that. Inside our source folder here, where we have our CSS file, which we won't really use. Maybe we will a little bit, but let's see here, our index.js file. I'm going to create a folder called components. Can't spell today. And this is where our components are going to go. Okay, so our individual components. So let's import those now. Import tickets from, now we haven't created this file yet, but we will. From components / and we'll call this tickets, because this is where we're going to get our actual tickets. Import add ticket from /components, /add tickets. When we create this component, that's what it'll be called. Now, one thing we need to do, the only package we need to install on the front end is Axios to make HTTP requests. Now, you don't necessarily need this, but it's nice to have. You could use the JavaScript fetch API, but this is just as good, and we're working with React and npm. So npm I Axios, and that shouldn't take too long. There we go, it didn't take long at all. And so we don't need Axios in this main folder because we're not actually doing anything here, but let's come down here and add our JSX to add in our elements, tickets. That's how you add in our components. whoops, ticket, whoops, that should be tickets, sorry, tickets. Okay, now let's just save real quick. Now let's come in here and create the actual file. So that was tickets with a capital T .js. Okay, now, and let's create the other file. New file, add ticket.js, because we're only adding one, so it's just add ticket. There we go. We got our two new files added. Now, on VS Code, if you come over here to this little cube thing, actually I don't have them installed. So ES, because this is a new computer, ES, this one right here, ES7, React, Redux, GraphQL, React Native Snippets. We want to install that. And that just gives us the ability to do this. I type RAF, and it gives me this here, and we get a nice little boilerplate. Same on here, RAF, and it gives me this nice boilerplate of a React functional component. We're going to be using React hooks, by the way, not class components, because they're too long to type out. The other one you can install is Prettier. Where is it? Here we go. This just formats your code on save, so it puts all the indentations, etc. in there, which is super convenient because most programmers I know, and myself included, are lazy. Okay, good. So here we are. So we're gonna. Oops, sorry guys. So we're gonna close this, and we're gonna work on just getting our tickets to show up. So we're gonna import Axios because we need Axios to do an HTTP request to our server, to our routes, right? Okay, so we're doing that. So we also need, since this is a React functional component, we need React use state hook and use effect hook. Whoops. Use effect hook, because that's how we're going to get and maintain our state. So I'm going to create const. We're going to call this, oops, tickets, and set tickets. We're getting all of them, remember, equals use state, and initially we'll set it to an empty array. Okay, that's all we need for that. Let's do also, I don't want to get too fancy, const loading equals set loading equals use state. We'll set to false initially. Okay, go down and give some space here. Now here's where we get our use state. Now because we want the state, we want the tickets to load when our component loads, we're going to get use effect. We're going to use our use effect hook, which takes a callback, which is an arrow function. Now you could just put your logic in here, but it's better to do a asynchronous call, or an asynchronous function, I'm sorry. Async arrow function here, and then we do our data in here. We'll say let, oops, sorry. Say let, oh my god, sorry, cap locks are on. Let, we'll say let results equal await. We want to await this process of Axios, Axios to get our route. Actually, it should be Axios.get, or you could just do that. Now, what route? Good question. Now we have our proxy, remember, over here. So this does the work for us. It automatically knows to add this. So all we have to do is come in here and say API/tickets, and there you go. Now, you know, once you get that, here we can set loading to true. Whoops, true. And then once we get that, we come down here and we do set tickets to results.data. So this is actually setting our state, which is tickets, setting it to the results.data. Okay, and then we'll set loading back to false because now we have our tickets, so we don't, we don't need that. Okay, so then let's come out of here and let's call this fetch data function. Okay, because if you don't do that, you'll go crazy. Now we only want the tickets to load initially on the first load of our component. So we reset it back to an empty array because we're not watching for anything, and we just want to load the tickets and then be done. Okay, so that's what that does. All right, so now what we need to do is, so we got our tickets. So let's see if this works. Console.log, oops, not .com, log tickets. Let's log our state. Save all. And now remember that thing way back when, this dev. Now is when we use it. We come over to here in our base folder, not our client folder. We do npm run dev, and that should run both our front end and our back end. You can see concurrently. We got a problem. That's all right. Close this. Here we go. Can't resolve components. Add tickets. That's just because it's an empty file. Let's go here. Let's do h4. Oops. Add a ticket. Save all. We're getting an error on our Mongo. Let's just shut it down real quick and then start it up again. Sometimes you get that error. I still get an error. Amazon components. So I just had to fix my configuration. I just had to change up. I had the wrong. Make sure you have your proper username and all. I've used this database for a lot of different things, so you probably won't have the same issue. I'd like to mention you could also use MongoDB locally on your local machine, which is convenient. I could post a link to that in the description. Really helps. Anyway, so yeah, so good. We're getting our tickets. So let me show you the front end. So here's our empty array. Now we should be getting the tickets as well. But let's try this. Just print out our results. Good. There we go. There's our ticket. Good. Sorry. Yeah, so this should just be results, not results.data. Sorry about that, guys. It's just one array. One array with a bunch of key value pair objects. Okay, great. So now we need to, what I like to do is create a variable, let data equal. We're going to take our tickets dot, and we're going to map through them with a high order array method. We're going to call each individual ticket a ticket, and then we're going to, let's see, what should we do here? What's the best way? Probably should have figured this out. Okay, so we're going to put it into another JSX element here, and we're going to pass in props to it. So this is our main tickets. This is all of them, but each individual ticket is going to be its own automatically generated component. So tickets, so we're going to pass that, and we have to give it a key because this is the main object. This is the main element. So key will be equal to, we'll say ticket, the ticket variable that we set right here in our map. I'm sorry, right here in our map, ticket.id. Actually, I think it's underscore ID for MongoDB. Okay, great. And now all we have to do, let's make this div a class. Oops, Jesus. Let's make this a class name class camel case, capital NAME, equal, we'll give it a container, and we'll say margin dash 3. We'll just give it some padding. Delete this and add in a JSS expression, and we're going to put our data variable in there. So it's just a cleaner way. You could put all this .map in here, that's fine, but I just like that. It's a little cleaner. Good. Alright, so now we have to import that ticket variable, ticket component from /ticket. Now we have, oops, sorry, you need quotes around that. quotes, /ticket. Now this is each individual ticket. Now of course we're not going to create a component for each individual ticket. We're just going to pass it and how many ever it has, because we're mapping through. So this maps through and says, okay, there's 45 tickets, then it prints out 45 individual components of this ticket. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this new file called ticket.js. Type RAF. We'll get a React functional component, and here we could do props, and that's fine, but then you have to do props.ticket.whatever. Instead we'll use destructuring and just pull out the ticket props that's passed in. Okay. Now here we can just do, let's just do it, open up a JSS expression and do ticket.subject. Now we only have one in there for now, but let's see if this worked. What do we got here? Tickets.map is not a function. Okay. Tickets.map. Okay. Okay. My mistake, guys. I apologize. You do need the data over here. I forgot about that. I'm kind of doing this off the cuff. I don't really have anything to go off of. But anyway, so our results, and then results.data sets the ticket. Then we map through the ticket array, our new array after it's set. We set each individual one to a ticket component. Okay, and that's what we are here. Let's close this. Let's close this. Close our app. So the individual ticket component goes into the main tickets component, and the main tickets component goes into the app.js, which is right here. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. And let's take a look at our front end, and there you go. There's our first subject. Don't worry about this warning. We'll take care of that. Okay? So there you go. So I'm just going to keep it basic. I'm going to put I'm going to look it up. I forget what the heck it is. I'm just going to put these in an alert. Div with the class of alert. That's what I thought. Okay. So let's put this with a class name equals to alert, and that was alert dash. We're going to make it primary, which will make it blue. Oops. Primary. Let's do nh4, and this is where we'll put our subject. Ticket dot subject, and down here we'll do paragraph tag, and we'll do ticket dot description. Okay, and I think that might be all we need. I mean, you could add the created at down here, I guess. We could do another p tag with class name equals we'll say margin -1 and text muted. These are just bootstrap classes. And you could put here ticket dot created at, and it'll show the time of when it's created. Hopefully. Let's go here. There we go. Good. See, it just shows. Now, there's plenty of ways to manipulate this, but we're not going to get into that. This is a Mern stack. Now, so we're done with our individual tickets. Let's go back to this real quick. And I'm going to temporarily delete this. I'm going to actually, let me just delete it all together. Open up a JSS expression. I'm going to say loading. This is a ternary operator. Loading, then we'll say h4 loading for our data. I think that's how it works. Should be. Yeah, for sure. Save all. Good. Now I don't know if you can see it. It's real fast, but we just added it. It says loading. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. It's not really important. Okay, now probably the next best thing is to add. You know what? Let's do the add so we can add tickets in there. Okay. First, we need to import Axios from Axios. Okay. Good. Let's create our form. I'm going to do this real basic. So we need a form here. We can have. All right. Let's give it a label. We'll say subject, and we'll say input type. Oops, sorry. Type equals text. Name equals subject. Whoops. Let's see. That's good. We can do value will be equal to something. There you go. Good. Let's do it. Label. Say description. Input. Oops. Sorry, we need that. Input. Type of text area. Name equals description. Spell that right? Yeah. Value will be equal to something. We'll set later. And then inside we need a button. Oops, sorry, not capital. That's React strap. Button, which we'll give a class name of, we'll say primary. I'm sorry, that's btn-primary. Good enough. This is real basic, guys, and we'll say submit. This also, the button needs a type of submit. Type equals submit. Okay, and our form needs a on submit. So when the type of submit button is hit, it knows what to do. We'll say handle submit. Okay, good. Now we also, for each input, we also need to track what's happening to them. So whenever somebody types something in, we get this. I'm going to set that to a callback function of some sort. I'm going to cut, sorry, this should be lowercase on change. Okay, this is pretty standard. I have another video, actually a couple videos, on how to do forms in React, and you can check those out on my channel. They're pretty recent, so alright, so we need that on change event. Great. But we need to create state, so we need to bring in use state. This post component takes a little bit longer, but once you see how it's done, it's pretty easy. Const subject. This is just for forms. Set subject equals use state const description. This is just to get the data from the form so that we can put it into a new ticket and then send it to our backend. Okay, good. Let's see. You know what? I'm not going to bother with any errors. Let's just get this. All right. So now, we need to, let's in here in our on change. So we're now going to do set subject to e.target.value, which is the target of what here. We need to pass in this this event, and we're targeting this element that we're putting it in. Okay. Let's do the same here. So first we need to pass in the event that we're tracking, which is the event of someone typing in our input. We need to set description to the event.target.value of the input. Now, let's come up here. We'll just console.log subject and description. Description. Hopefully that should work. Let's test out our form. If that works, then we're good. We're getting an error here. All right, I'm going to move this to the bottom temporarily. Oh, value. Okay, so the value of the subject is going to be subject, which is coming from the state up here, this state. So we're just setting the value of it so it knows what it is. That's why we're getting an error. Good. Handle submit. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of that in a minute. Oh, it's okay. It's not letting us do it. Whatever, man. All right. So let's just create that const handle submit equals here. Good. Here, and we need to pass in another event, and then we need to e.prevent default, because we want to stop the default action of React, which is to reload the page after you press it, after you submit the form. Okay, and then we'll just this is where we'll console log our info of what we have so far. We're not doing anything yet. We're just seeing if our form works properly. Good. Here's this. It's nothing spectacular. So if you look here, we got our form. Nothing spectacular. Let me see if I can go back here. I'm going to move this to the right again because that's how I prefer to work. Let me add this ticket. Let me change this to container and margin top -4, just to give it a little extra zest. There we go. That looks a little better. All right, so we're going to type in our subject here, submit, and there we go. So we're getting our values. Good. Okay, so let me close this. So our add ticket. So now that we have our values, what do we want to do? All right. Okay. We need to store it, const new ticket. Okay, it's going to be equal to an object. No, I'm sorry, just an object. Sorry, and we're going to have subject and description. Good. Can't spell it. So now that we have our both of our things stored in a new dealio, okay, now we can just store it, right? How do we do that? So let's say we'll say, I don't know, what should we call this? Create, no, let's just say create new ticket equal axios.post to where no slash API slash tickets, okay, and whoops, comma, and we need to pass along our new ticket object in there. Whoop, Jesus, sorry guys. New ticket. Okay. And then let's set subject back to 0 or back to empty. Okay, and do the same for set description back to an empty string. And I believe that's all we have to do. I'm pretty sure. Right? Yep. Okay. Let's check, and there we go. New ticket, we'll say 3. Hello world. Submit. Now, we don't have Redux installed, so we have to refresh, but you get the idea. Create new ticket is so we'll say put some stuff in there. If let's say if create new ticket dialog new ticket created, right? Whatever. So let's see, new ticket 4. Let's type in a bunch of stuff. And here, new ticket created, so you know it worked, and we just refresh to get it. Good. Now let's do something. The last thing, really, we're not going to bother with the push update. Or the put update to update one. That takes a lot. Sorry, and this video is already long enough. Maybe I'll do a video exclusively on that. But for right now, let's do the delete button. Okay, so I'm going to close this. We know that works. In here is where we're going to put the delete button. Okay, so we're just going to make a button. I'm going to say button. I'm going to say delete. Oops, delete. Okay. No fancy frills, just just enough. Now we want to give it an on-click event with a callback function. Okay. And let's give it a class name. Class name equals. Here we'll say btn dash warning. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. And let's pass in an event, and then we're going to say e.prevent default because we want to prevent it. We're basically going to do all our logic in here. It's not the greatest, but what the heck? You know what? No. Yeah, alright, what the heck. Might as well do it. Okay, so we're here. So what I did was I refactored it. So we have our on-click event. We're going to track the event just to prevent the default of reloading. And it's going to go to a function called delete post. Okay, so that's what this button does. So we're going to come up here and create that const delete. Oops, sorry. Const delete post equals an arrow function. No async. We don't really need that. Okay. Now we're going to say axios.delete to where, right? So remember how in our routes file on delete, we had to pass in this ID. So this is a placeholder. So after this, so we do here API/tickets. Here we need the ID there. How do we get that? Well, first, instead of quotes, I'm going to use those backticks, which is the little tick next to your number 1 key, and I'm going to say API/tickets/ because you need that slash in there, and then I'm going to immediately follow that with a variable of the ticket.id. Well, actually it's underscore ID, right? Because we're using this and we're getting the ID and we're passing that in as that, right? And since it's promise based, I could do .then here we can console you can do whatever you want. Console.log, you can do backticks again, say money sign curly braces ticket dot underscore ID was deleted successfully, and then you can do a dot catch in case there's an error console.log that error. So that's it. So let's save it and see if that works. Don't worry about all these warnings, that's okay, don't worry about it. So let's just refresh just for the sake of it. Click delete. This ID was deleted successfully, and if we refresh you can see it's deleted. We can delete it again, delete it successfully. There you go. We can add, say new ticket, jeez I can't spell today, ticket 5, type in a bunch of junk here, new ticket created, and there you go. Now there's a ton of other things you can get into, but guys, like I said at the beginning of this video is long enough. I hope you got something out of it. I sincerely do. If you did, let me know in the comments below, or smash that like button. I would appreciate it greatly. And that's it, guys. Hopefully, so this is a complete CRUD application minus the update. Like I said, guys, if you wanna go over how to add an update into this, that's not a problem. We can easily do that. I just didn't want to cram too much in here. I just wanted to give you a basic idea of how CRUD applications work. That's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself and each other. See ya.